Hey guys, it's Ian here with HobbiesofaMan once again, and today we're going to be doing our monthly wrap-up video, and as you guys can see behind me, I did end up doing some changes to the background and to how I have set up my kind of reading nook, I guess. And the reason is because I changed rooms here in my apartment from the largest room in the apartment to the second largest because of some nebulous stuff that happened. And one of my roommates decided to move out to live with his girlfriend instead. So one of our rooms freed up, and then we have someone else coming in, my sister actually. And so I wanted to switch over to this other room, right? So it's basically the same in terms of everything, but this movement has really eaten into my relaxation time. It's been pretty hard to basically do anything besides move stuff around, clean, and do schoolwork, right? So I've not really read as much as I really wanted to. I did read more comic books, like single issue comics than usual, but that's because they're so easy to read comparatively. So yeah, but I really wish that I could have recorded this last video in June in my other room with my other setup, and then started July with this one, but it just wasn't possible. So it is what it is. It'll just annoy me for the rest of time, right? But yeah, so June was June on the Range month, or there was an event called June on the Range that happened during this month, which was basically about trying to read Westerns, which is a genre of fiction that is very American, and specifically, I guess it's a very Southern type thing. And as a Texan, I was like, this is the event for me. I believe in it, right? And since I'm North Mexican too, so same idea, because North Mexicans and South Texans, or Southerners from the Southwest region, basically are the same, broadly speaking, right? So I wanted to take part in this event. I do like Westerns, although they're a relatively new genre to me. And I tried my best, but I didn't really get to read too much Western stuff, right? I did read one thing that is like a Western, but honestly, probably by the end of the first volume, I would say it's not really a Western, but it's close enough that it counts, right? But I just feel like I've been so busy this month, right? I had to come back from visiting my parents. I went to Howard Days. I went to a screening. I had to move. I had to take 2 exams. Like, I just feel like there was so much stuff going on, and it really did affect my reading time, right? But I also did end up watching a bit of more TV than usual, so that's probably what bit into my reading time as well. But yeah, I guess that's it. So let's get started here. I do gotta get better lighting or something, because it's a bit weak for my taste, right? It's a bit too orange as well, even though I'm right under the light source. So yeah, in terms of my watch list, I watched Mission Impossible 7 Dead Reckoning at the beginning of the month. I watched Ancient Apocalypse, which is a pretty cool documentary. Well, it's more like a mockumentary, right? It's not really, like, the concept is there was an extinction level event called the Younger Dryas, which did happen, and this potentially wiped out an ancient advanced civilization, and all of the post-Younger Dryas period history, which is pre-Neolithic history for us, or Neolithic history for us, is full of stories that let us know that this ancient civilization existed. Why is no one looking into it? And then the guy that does this, Graham Hancock, takes us to a bunch of different places throughout the world to kind of expand on that, right? So he visits Peru, Mexico, some island in Sicily. He goes to Indonesia, all sorts of places. And the show is actually really, really cool and interesting and fun. I just don't know that I can get behind the ancient civilization, Atlantis, idea, right? Like, I just don't think that it's really there. Like, he almost convinced me, but not exactly, right? But I thought it was a good show. It's on Netflix. I recommend it. Then I watched Delicious in Dungeon, and I loved this. I thought it was phenomenal. It was wonderful. It was so enjoyable. I really, really liked it, right? So that's it for that. I will do a review for it at some point. I just have not had the time to do so. Then I watched Ultraman Rising, which is a great movie. I went to a screening for it, which means that I got to see it before it came out. I got to see it in theaters, which is actually a great experience. I do think that Netflix should have put this up on in theaters at least for like a week or two, and it would have been really, really great. You know, maybe have it both in theaters and at home and just let people pick whichever version they wanted to watch. But I think that watching it in theater made me like it more because I watched it again here in my apartment, and I think it was a bit less impactful. I think it is because it was on a significantly smaller screen, right? Because Ultraman is about turning big, and I think that that is really appreciable or appreciated through watching it on a giant screen like in the movie theater, right? So yeah, then I started watching Konosuba. I watched the first 3 episodes. It's fun, it's enjoyable, but I've not had a chance to go back to it. Then I watched Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, which is a long-ass title, but it was a good movie. However, I do feel it was a bit long, just a tiny bit. And there were some elements to it that I really, really liked. Like the idea that the apes raise eagles was awesome. And I guess that symbolism also matches to the idea that they wanted to build an empire. And because the first ape's name was Caesar, there is this like Latin Roman type thing included, and Romans liked eagles, so it all ties in thematically, but it was really, really fun. I liked it a lot. I've been watching My Adventure with Superman, and I love it. I think it's so fun. I think it's a great show. I saw people complaining about the fact that Clark doesn't solve any issues by himself in the series, and that it's all about being a boy toy to like a bad bitch Lois Lane, and I don't think that that's the case. I think whoever made that complaint on Twitter was like smoking something, because that is not what the show shows at all. Like, this is not one of those types of show. Like, yes, Lois Lane is a fun, interesting, very capable, badass girl character, but she doesn't lead Clark around like a dog, and she doesn't do anything that makes him less important. And honestly, the really fun part about this show is that it's not really about Superman. It's about like the relationship between these 3 friends and Clark going through this journey of discovery of himself, right? And it's not necessarily about being Superman and being the baddest, most badass character ever, right? So I didn't understand that complaint. I love the series. They introduced Kara Zor-El, which is awesome. I love that she immediately thinks that what's his name? Jimmy is awesome. I think that's funny and it's really enjoyable. I really appreciate the whole Brainiac angle of the series. I think it's great. So I'm really, really liking everything about the show a lot. The only thing I don't like is that, you know, episodes come out once a week on Sunday, and that sucks. I really wish that I could watch all of them in one go, but it is what it is. Still really fun. I also started watching Bastard, the 2nd season, because I watched the 1st season a few years ago. And man, I love the series. It's so stupid and ridiculous and insanely horny. But Dark Schneider, the main character, has not shown up yet in the episodes that I've seen, which is only the first one in the 2nd season. And I'm a little bit upset about that. However, watching this anime just makes me wish that I had access to the manga. Like, I really want to collect the manga. And there is a way for me to do it. I could buy it from Spain. I just don't want to do that because that takes too much freaking effort and too much money to collect, you know, what is just a normal book, right? Like, there's something special about it. I mean, it is like a Kanzenban edition or whatever, but still. So I've been watching that. It's really, really great. I did want to start watching Garo, the animation, this month because I've been wanting to get into Garo for a long time. Garo is basically like... So if Power Rangers is like the nicest version of Sentai, and Kamen Rider is like a dark version of Sentai, Garo is like the horror version of Sentai, right? It's like the darkest version. I really want to get into it. I've been wanting to get into it for a while. This YouTube channel called Grimdark Half Off recently did a video talking about Garo, and I really want to get into it. So I wanted to start, you know, watching Garo via the watch order that he suggested, and I have not had a chance, but there's still 2 days left in June here, so hopefully I'll get a chance to do so, right? But yeah, so that's it for what I've been watching. I've been also watching a lot of soccer since the America Cup is going on right now, Copa America, the South American Soccer Cup is going on right now, and I'm enjoying it. Mexico's doing bad, so I'm upset about that, but the US is doing pretty good, so that's not bad. So that's it for what I've been watching. In terms of what I've been reading, I'll divide it into Western stuff, which I'll talk about first, and then not Western stuff, right? So I'll be back in just a sec after I set up all of my piles of books, right? So I'll see you guys in just a sec. Okay, so let's get started with the stuff that's related to June on the Range, right? So I started reading Louis L'Amour's Hondo, and I didn't get very far, as you guys can see. That's about a third of the way through the book, and I do think I will finish it by the end of the month, since this is probably what I'm going to read for the next 2 days that are left. And I'm actually really enjoying this. However, I'm very confused about what this is about. So there's this guy, his name is Hondo Lane, and he meets this woman called Angelo, and he is tracking / running away from this Native American Apache band of warriors led by this guy called Vittorio. And as he's doing this and meeting this woman and kissing her out of nowhere and telling her that she shouldn't be alone and getting her all flustered, there's these other guys who are the people that Hondo works for, who are this American, soldier company, and they get slaughtered by the Apaches, right? And I got to the point where Hondo eventually makes it back to where they were, and he sees that they're all dead, and something's about to happen. I just don't know what. And I'm just confused about this being a romance story or this being a fight against Apaches. It can be both. It's just like, so far, it feels like they're very separate, not very combined or relevant to each other type plot lines. And I am enjoying this because I really like the art, the writing style. I was going to say the art style. No, the writing style. I really like it. I think that there is a very phenomenal brusqueness to it. Like it's it's not mean-spirited, but there's a certain level of like choppiness or maybe like reticence to this writing style that I really find appealing, because it really reminds me of what an old, like, not very happy but still very willing to stay alive type of old guy would talk like. And it has this amazing way of really getting me into the zone of this Western, right? Like, there is a certain level of like, oh yeah, this is exactly what this would feel like, that comes from the way that Louis L'Amour writes, specifically Hondo, but I think it happened the same way with Flint as well, right? So, I don't know. I just really appreciate the writing style a lot. So I'm definitely going to finish reading this tonight. So I have 70 pages read, and the story is about 200 pages, right? So I'm a little bit less than a third of the way there, or a little bit more. I can't remember. A little bit more than a third of the way there. And I definitely think I will finish reading this by the end of the month. So I'll just say that I finished reading Hondo. Then I started reading Green Blood, which is a manga. And this one doesn't, like, it is a Western because that is eventually where the character ends up in the, Wild West. But everything that happens here is in some nebulous area of New York or something. And it's in the middle of the 19th century. And our main character, which is this guy, he's some sort of gun for hire, or he works for a gang, but something happens at the end of this volume that makes him have to leave in order to protect his younger brother and his girlfriend. Well, it's not really his girlfriend. It's like the whore from the brothel that he really likes, that has a relationship with him of some sort. And in order to protect them, he has to leave, and he has to go out west. And so this kind of starts this dramatic telling of this story of this guy going out west, and being a badass about it, right? So I really enjoyed this stuff. I really, really like it. I recommend you guys read it if you're interested in checking it out. However, it's only available in Spanish. I'm sure you can find an English translation online somewhere, right, in the high seas, but you can collect it pretty easily in Spanish, right? So yeah, then I started reading this new series of comic books called Ain't No Grave. It's currently serializing. There's supposed to be 5 issues. The first issue is 40 pages though, so this is a 2-in-1 type issue deal. And it follows this woman. Her name is Ryder. She was a badass outlaw who got married, had a daughter, and eventually realized that she had some sort of debilitating, death-inducing disease, right? And she's coughing up blood. And the doctor tells her one day, you don't really have too much time left to live. You should get comfortable and spend time with your loved ones so that you guys can appreciate your time together as much as you can, right? And Ryder, being this crazy outlaw lady, is like, nah, fuck that shit. I'm gonna go find Death and I'm gonna go kill them so that he can't kill me, or so that he can't take me, right? I don't necessarily know that is exactly how Death works in this universe, right? But it's great. I really, really like it. So it's a Western because it happens on a frontier type setting. She goes across this fantasy world, which may or may not be here, Earth, that is, set up in the same way that the Old West was. She goes through mesas, she goes through the desert, she goes through forests, she gets seen / followed by some Apache type characters. And eventually she manages to go to the underworld, or to this city of the dead called Cyprus, where everything looks like a saloon or a mining town or something. And she enters it and she goes on her quest to kill Death. And so far, she is trying to run away from all the citizens of the city who are tracking her down because Death put out a wanted poster for her, right? So really good stuff. I really, really like it. If you guys like Western stuff, but you want to check out a comic book instead of a novel, I recommend this. It's pretty easy to get caught up to it now since there's only 2 issues out so far. And it's by Scotty Young and Jorge Corona. So if you like Middle West or Twig or I Hate Fairyland or any of those series, you'll probably really like this. And I really recommend it, right? So there you go. Yeah, and then I also read The Gods Are Bastards, which is a web serial. It's a fantasy story, but it has a Western type setting. And it's kind of similar to, The Wandering Inn or, all sorts of other web serial type stories. It has its own website. You can read it on the website for free. You can read it on Royal Road for free, or you can buy the first book for 99 cents on Kindle. And that's what I did because I tried reading it on the app or on the website, and it doesn't have the setting adjustment thing that The Wandering Inn web novel has, and so it was really upsetting. I just hated reading it on there because it wasn't adjustable. So I through a bit of a Hail Mary type thing. I was like, okay, if it's on Kindle, I'll buy it on Kindle because I don't really like reading on Royal Road all that much. It was 99 cents. I was like, okay, this is annoying that I have to pay for it, but it's so cheap that it's whatever. And then I finally was able to read it, right? So it's really cool and interesting. The story is great. I will do a review for it, but it opens up with this woman and this sheriff talking about this crater that happens to be, in this middle of nowhere place. And the guy is talking about what happened to create this crater. Basically, a little girl burst into flames and exploded, and it made this hole. He tells the woman that he's upset that she came here to investigate this because people were finally moving on from this, right? Because in a small town, this sort of stuff can really, really affect them. And then it turns out that this woman is a professor at a university. She is an elf, and she's here because she's chasing down leads about what caused this. And it turns out that the people that did this are all members of this dark cult to this queen of demons called Delilah, right? Or Lilia or something like that. This guy is like, what the hell? What's going on? There's no way that anyone in this town is part of this cult. And it turns out that like half of the people in the town were part of it. They have this big battle, and that is the prologue to the story, right? From there, we transition over to basically learning that this world is a fantasy world. It has moved on from medieval stasis. It has managed to enter the, Industrial Revolution, and the era of expansion has started the same way that it happened here in the States, right? And so everyone now exists with this push to go past the frontier and expand and expand and expand. There is a certain level of like stopping to that because of the social, economic, and racial, landscape that is currently existing in this world. And it's been a long time since adventurers were necessary, but something has happened. Things are moving differently now, and so paladins are coming back, gods are making moves, and we follow a group of students that have been enrolled into the university that are potentially going to be these adventurer characters that we're going to need throughout this Western fantasy adventure, right? And the Western part of the story is mostly the setting. I mean, there is elements throughout the whole story, but 80% of the story or 70% of the story happens in this university that just happens to be next door to a little, that happens to be at the edge of the frontier in this little town, or next to this little town that is like a gold mining town, right? Like what you would expect from an old Western type town, right? But the vast majority of time you're spending on this in this university. That's pretty, Hogwarts-esque, right? You transition over to some time where you get to experience this like military outpost where these guys are just sitting there. It kind of reminds me of episode 4 of the Clone Wars, where we get to meet the rookies that are stationed on Rishi. Same idea, right? And then the other time is spent in like the Imperial City, which is equivalent to like New York or something, following this guy who's like a thief, and he's moving around, going into swanky saloons and, places like that, trying to get information, right? So it's not really a Western, but a lot of the initial stuff really feels like it, right? And ultimately it is like a frontier story, overall. So it is kind of a Western, right? And finally, the last thing I've been reading this month that relates to Westerns is White Indian. So I bought this early in the month. It's a Vanguard Frank Frazetta classic. It's the one that goes along with Johnny Comment that I bought a while back. And this gives you a collection of all of Frank Frazetta's Western stories, right? So you have stuff here from the backup to Durango Kid. You got some stuff from Heroic Comics. You got something from, there was another one, Trail Cult, Manhunt, Jesse James, and then you get some other frontier-esque type stories here at the end, like a Frank Frazetta Viking story, a story in a minefield, and some war stories at the end, right? And these look really cool. But the important part is the White Indian stuff, right? So the White Indian is this guy who somehow ends up in a bad situation. People kill his wife or his girlfriend, and he swears revenge on them. He gets attacked by a bear. Everyone leaves him behind, and then these Native Americans take him in and train him to be a warrior of their clan. He gets basically adopted by them. And then the guy that killed his wife comes back, kills his, Native American father figure, and he vows revenge on this guy a second time. He, alongside his adoptive little brother, chase this guy down, kill him, and then their revenge is over, but their quest for keeping people safe continues, and so now they go off on these adventures to stop evil deeds, right? So really cool stuff. I mean, honestly, the best part about this is that it's Frank Frazetta. Everything else is kind of secondary to it, but these are really fun old comics, right? So yeah, I recommend you guys check it out. This was available for $20, which is about the same that I spent on the Johnny Comment one, although that one was hardcover. I got it at Walmart, or from Walmart, from Walmart.com, and it's pretty accessible. It's pretty easy to understand, and it's not so old school that it's hard to read, right? So yeah, there you go. That's White Indian. That's all of the Western stuff that I read this month related to June on the Range. The only things I managed to finish, for sure, are The Gods Are Bastards, Book 1, What Fresh Hell Is This? I think that's what the name of the book is. And Ain't No Grave, issues 1 and 2, right? In terms of stuff otherwise that isn't related to June on the Range that I read 4 different manga this month. I read Witch's War #1. I read Record of Ragnarok #10. I read Iruma-kun, Welcome to Demon School, Iruma-kun. And Legendary Warrior Momo, which is a sci fantasy retelling of the Momotaro story, right? And there really isn't too much else to say about that. That's exactly what these things are. So yeah. Okay, and then to finish up really quick, I did read a bunch of comic books, so let's just run through them. Here we have Godzilla versus Justice League versus King Kong. This was a good ending, but overall the story is like a 3.5 out of 5 or a 4 out of 5. Here's Transformers #8. This is pretty good. I liked it a lot. I did a review for it already. Here's Wonder Woman #9. I really enjoyed this. Although I do have, like, if you look at the whole Tom King run, there's some issues with it. Mostly because I feel like it's a bit too decompressed, if that makes sense. You have Blue Beetle #9. I love this story. I'm so sad it's ending soon. Here is Rebel Moon #4. I freaking dislike this. By the end of it, it was just like really upsetting that I really enjoyed the first movie. The second movie was complete garbage, and anything related to that series is pretty disappointing by now. Then we have Rogue Sun #19. This is the start of a new arc where Dylan and his dad are now in a better spot, sort of. And this shows you the same story from 2 perspectives, and it's really, really great. On one side, you read the main character's perspective. On the other side, you read his dad's, which is cool. We have Green Arrow #10. This was a perfect ending to this run. If you don't want to get into the absolute power stuff, I did want to check out some of it at least. So I am going to still continue on, but I might actually drop it pretty quickly. Especially because after Absolute Power ends, Joshua Williamson is going to get off the books. So, you know, I could just finish the run now, but I decided to wait one more issue just to see, and then I'll decide then. Gun Hunting #1. This is a great cover, amazing stuff, but the artwork inside was a bit disappointing. I think it's mostly the coloring, but the artist that usually does this is still doing it, but he took a lot of decisions that just did not work for me in terms of how he chose to pose his characters this time, and that's pretty disappointing. Here's Thundercats #4. This is the end of the first arc, and it's more like a prologue, really, but it's not that bad. It was pretty good. I liked it. Here's Conan #11. This is the penultimate issue in the first year of storytelling, which is all leading up to the Black Stone event. And then from there, issue 13 starts kind of the second year, but also kind of just changes it up a bit because that issue starts the celebration of the 90th year for the Frost Giant's Daughter, which is more or less considered like the first story you should read for Conan if you want to read it kind of chronologically, right? So, yeah. Here's Remote Spaces #1. This is a science fiction story by Cliff Rathburn, 1 of 4. And this was a pretty good start. I was not expecting it to be what it is. I thought it was like humans versus aliens. And it turns out it's just humans versus humans. But it's like one of these like future tech versus biopunk type things, which is pretty interesting, but not exactly what I was expecting. But I did like it, and I think the artwork is quite good in it. Here we have Blue Beetle #10. Like I said, I love this book. Too bad it's ending soon. And that was the penultimate issue, and I really, really liked it. Here we have Dick Tracy #2. I am enjoying this. There's only going to be 5 issues for the first arc, and I don't know if I'm going to finish reading that whole story because it's $5 a piece, and it's not really like ramping up much yet, and we're halfway through the story already. So I'm not sure. I'll probably decide after book 3, but then at that point I'm like, well, there's only 2 more left, so I should just continue. And so I always kind of get this like analysis paralysis type thing going on because of this sort of decision. Here we have My Adventures with Superman #1. Great stuff. I really, really like it. There wasn't much going on here. I mean, this is basically like 1 or 2 episodes of the series divided into 6 comic books. And this is basically the first half of the first episode that they're covering here, right? And this is supposed to take place between the 2 seasons. So I think that the release schedule for it was kind of bad. They should have started this so that the series that they're releasing ended before My Adventures with Superman came out, right? Before the 2nd season came out. But that's just me. I don't know. Here's Gun Honey #2. Again, this cover is pretty good. I don't like the face on her. But the storytelling is enjoyable. The art style is a bit worse than usual this time, which sucks. Like I said before, Wonder Woman #10. I love this cover, and I actually really like this issue. I think it's great. But we're kind of getting into the absolute power stuff now, and I don't think that Wonder Woman is set up correctly to be part of that event, even though she's going to be for some reason. So I don't know. I don't like that. Here we have Dawn Runner #3. I love this story. I think it's so cool. The art style is amazing. The concept is really good as well. It's really strong. Here's Ultimate Spider-Man #5. Good stuff. Here's Red Sonja #11. I love this cover, and I think that this was a pretty good issue, but I really feel like the story is dragging a bit much. I think that Thorin Groenbeck is taking a bit too long to kind of get anywhere. Here's Thundercats #5. This is an interlude issue where you get like more development for Lion-O before the start of the next arc. Here is Transformers #9. This is great. I love this, and I think this cover is really symbolic of the issues that Optimus kind of faces as a leader, right? Here's Ultimate Spider-Man #6. This is back to the proper dream team here with Hickman and Checchetto, and this was a great issue. I really liked it. Here is Helen of Windhorn #3. This series is amazing. I really love this. Here's well, that's it actually. We're back to Godzilla vs. Kong, right? So that was it for single issues that are normal sized. I have a single issue that's oversized in The Forge #8. This was a great issue. Something here happened that was pretty unexpected. Or actually it happened in issue 7, and this continues on from it. And there's some really good stuff going on here that I really like. So I recommend you guys check that out. And then we have Penthouse #3 here, which was great. I love this cover. And I think that now that the stories are all kind of in the middle of them, there's a lot more going on, and it's a lot easier to enjoy it. And there's a lot less of that weird like desire to try to make, you know, Penthouse a meaningful, like thoughtful, literature-based type series, and there's a little bit more of that just generic, like, yeah, I want cool stories, but they're just about like fucking. Like I don't care about social equality issues in these sorts of things, right? Like I don't understand why they chose to do that. But now that the stories are kind of in the middle of them, they're a lot more interesting, so that's good. Here's Tarzan, The New Adventures. I read the first half of this, which is actually the first story arc where you get to see that Tarzan and Jane and Paul Darno end up finding a lost civilization that is actually just the city of Troy and some Greeks, and they're stuck in this temporal kind of hole here based on Atlantean technology, because that's a thing that is part of Tarzan lore, and Tarzan has to deal with that, as well as have to deal with Law, who tries to kill Jane in order to get Tarzan to marry her, right? And the artwork for this first story is amazing. It's done by Thomas Grinberg, and it's really good stuff. I really recommend you guys read this, at least for the first story arc. The second story arc I've not read yet. I don't know too much about it, so I can't really comment on it. It's still written by Roy Thomas, so that's cool. The issue is that they changed artist from Thomas Grinberg to Benito Gallego, and I like Benito Gallego's artwork. I think his style is great, but they did a really bad job at making Benito's art like pop in this, because they put him right after Thomas Grinberg, and Thomas Grinberg's style is like insanely amazing, and then you kind of drop in quality to Benito's, right? I mean, well, that's not the right way to word it, but you drop in like the style changes very drastically, right? And so it feels like this drop in quality, even though it's not. And I really think that they did something quite bad with that, because it makes it so that regardless of whether you like the second story more or less, there is that element of like, oof, the art could have been better because you got this amazing stuff from Thomas Greenberg in the first one, right? But Thomas Greenberg left because he realized that he wouldn't be able to keep up the pace for this, right? So it's understandable why that happened. It's just like, you really fucked over Benito Gallego here, and you kind of created this expectation or this emotional reaction in the reader that is probably not for the best, right? So those are my thoughts on that. I will talk about that more properly in a review for this book, so I'll mention that later again. But yeah, that's it for what I've been reading this month. What have you guys been reading this month? Let me know down below, and thank you guys very much for watching. See you guys later.